here is example 7 from the homework, just in case you wanted to see that again. So we're going to start by taking a look at this polynomial. So it's quartic, and we know that one of the answers is x equals 5. Now we can't factor it because it's not 4 terms, right? It has 5 terms to it, so we don't have a method for factoring that. So we're going to need to use either division or synthetic division to get one of the roots, and then hopefully we'll be able to factor it from there. So let's go ahead and do synthetic division. So for synthetic division, remember that the factor is x minus r, where the answer is r. So here, if the answer is 5, that's what we're actually going to be dividing by for our synthetic division. And so I'm going to divide by this 5. That's coming from over here. And then I'm just going to bring down each of the coefficients in the polynomial that I'm dividing in my dividend. So here I've got 5, negative 20, negative 26, 4, and 5. And so I've got, oops, my divisor, that line did not get exactly where I wanted it to go, so I'll give myself a little bit of room to write the numbers in. So the first one I just bring straight down for synthetic division, the 5. Then I multiply this result by the divisor, and I get the answer to that product. So 5 times 5 is 25. Then I add the results, and that gives me 5. Now I repeat. I multiply this result by the divisor. That gives me 25. I write it here. And then I add. Negative 26 plus 25 is negative 1. And repeat. Multiply this times the 5. That gives me negative 5. And then I add. That gives me negative 1. And repeat. Negative 1 times 5. That gives me negative 5. And so 5 minus 5, or 5 plus negative 5, is 0. So I have a remainder of 0, which is great. I don't have to deal with any fractions, because that would be messier. And so now I know what 2 of the factors are, right? I said I know that one of the factors is x minus r, where this r is 5. So I've got a factor here of x minus 5. That comes from this. That's what we divided by. And then I have what's left over, right? I have 5x, but I already divided something out of here, so I'm 1 exponent lower for each of my terms. So 5x to the third plus 5x squared minus 1x minus 1. So that's my final term. Now I'm looking for the roots, so I want to know when this function is equal to 0 to find the roots of it. So I need to figure out a way to factor what's left here, and so it looks like I can do some factoring by grouping. So I'm going to think about my first pair and my second pair. So just bring down this first factor. I'm not going to do much with it. And then here I've got a common factor for the first 2 terms of 5x squared, which leaves me with x plus 1 inside parentheses. And for the second pair, I've got a common factor of negative 1, which leaves me with x plus 1 for that. And so those are all equal to 0. So here I know that what my 2 factoring pairs, again, I just bring down this x minus 5 outside. So here I've got the binomial x plus 1 times the quadratic binomial here, 5x squared minus 1 is equal to 0. And so now I'm going to split this up into the factored equation. So x minus 5 is equal to 0, x plus 1 is equal to 0, and I've got a quadratic here, 5x squared minus 1 is equal to 0. That's okay, I can solve that. So these two I'm just going to take care of real quickly so I don't forget to have those as solutions. X equals 5, x equals -1. And here I need to solve this quadratic. It doesn't look like it's going to be easy to factor because it's not a difference of two squares. But it doesn't have a linear term. So maybe I can get the x squared alone on one side and get the numbers on the other side. So let's see if I can do that. I'm going to add 1 on both sides. So 5x squared is equal to 1. Oh, and if I just divide both sides by 5, I get x squared is equal to 1/5. So taking the root of both sides, I get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1/5. Now, of course, in any textbook or on your answer key, we're not going to leave a radical in the denominator, so they're going to rationalize that denominator. So they're going to say that x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 divided by 5. And they're going to take that and they're going to multiply the denominator by the square root of 5 and the numerator by the square root of 5. And this is equal to 1, so it's just like I'm not really doing anything here. I'm just multiplying it by 1. So if I multiply the square root of 5 by the square root of 5, I, of course, get 5. Because the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is the square root of 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. And then the top, I've got the square root of 1 times the square root of 5, which is just the square root of 1 times 5, or the square root of 5. So the answer key will have the 4 answers, which are x is equal to 5, -1, positive root 5 over 5, and negative root 5 over 5. And that, my friends, is how we solve for all 4 of the roots. Okay.